Here we are back for part two of June 2025, and I am joined by my dear brother and my friend Jim Seymour, who's the founder of Stardust Services, and we are here with Stars and Spells. Jim's giving you the good stuff on what's happening astrologically, and I'm bringing you spells to support what he's sharing. And if you're new here and you haven't watched the first part of June, go do that first and then come back to this episode. We aim to break each month into two parts because it's a lot of information and it allows us to give you more digestible pieces. And make sure you subscribe. And Jim, hello. So great to see you.
Hey, it's good to see you too, Tahverlee, man. It's a blessing and a privilege to join you.
It's so fun. And I love what's coming out of all this great conversation. And the great thing is we've just begun. So I can only imagine, we're flying and we're flying high with all of this.
Little did I know when I went to college back in the 80s and played jazz music in different college bands, how the whole thing of improvisation and spontaneous expression would come back into play, because I never know what I'm going to say. Even if I rehearse things or practice things or take notes, I always go off script, and it's very, because I don't want to keep looking at the notes, but so it's, yeah, I'm just like channeling this.
You're channeling it. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're channeling it. And I do think that sometimes, I found myself, I did a couple of live streams last night, one inside Witch School, which I do have a Witch School. If people are interested and they can find it in my profile, but I also did it on TikTok, and I channeled so much like last night in these two lives. I didn't get to anything that I had noted down that I wanted to talk about. And what happened is there were some really good sparked questions that came in. I mean, we had 9,000 people on the live stream last night. So there was a lot of good questions that came in, and my eyes could see little words from questions while I was answering a different question, and I just kept weaving it. To me, channeling is also weaving. Does that make sense to you? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So I love it. I love what you're sharing. And okay, so I have a question for you. I want to start, and we like to ask each other questions because it helps us kind of drop into a connected place. How do you define dissolving from a spiritual perspective?
Well, the first thing I'm picking up is that the whole notion of dissolving something is the action of the planet Neptune. Neptune dissolves. Neptune is like paint stripper. It just starts, the old coat starts to run and move away, revealing what's already underneath. So to answer your question, which I had no idea you were going to ask this, it would be the dissolving of the false ego. There's two births we go through in life. The first birth is when we emerge from our mother's wombs in this physical body, and we get a name, we get a family surname, we get a nationality, we're born into a particular culture at a particular time in history. We learn rituals and traditions and holidays and all the things of our nation that were, the land of our birth. We maybe inherit a religion from our parents or our family line, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's a second birth, which a lot of us use in the spiritual communities as awakening, which was when we wake up to the fact that I'm not this body. I am the living force within this body. I am the spark of consciousness. I'm a spirit soul an eternal spirit soul having a temporary earthly experience. So dissolving is the gradual removing away of everything that's false. In my Bhakti yoga tradition, there's a Sanskrit word called ahankara. Ahankara means false designations like male, female, white, black, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Jew, Republican, Democrat. These are all just temporary false labels that we wear, but they're not who we are. So dissolving in a spiritual sense is kind of like uncovering gold in the ground. Gold already exists in the ground. No one manufactures gold. We just have to know where to look to uncover it. And they smelt gold, they heat it up, and they remove the impurities from it. So they're dissolving the gold molecules to let go of what what is false. So yeah, is that a long-winded Sagittarius answer or what?
Yes. And it was great. That was a great answer. I was actually just thinking, I in mystery school I teach a course called alchemy, and one of the stages of alchemy, of course, is dissolution, and everything you're describing is in the dissolution stage. That was not how I meant to ask that question, but you clearly tapped into alchemy. That was a beautiful answer. And
Well, my Mercury and Venus in Sagittarius is conjunct your sun. So
mm,
your Sagittarius sun and my Mercury Venus are all in a little group together in the sky.
so we're just
So
bouncing right off each other, all
yeah,
connected.
you just being yourself, it just opens up the floodgates of my Venus Mercury energy, and I just blah, 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 blah.
I like it.
The
I like it.
Sag likes to, yeah, Sag likes to go off on tangents.
Yes, that was great. The thing that came to me too near the end of what you were channeling, is water. Because you were talking about we find gold, we don't make gold. It's actually the same with water. We don't make water, we find it. And water is like, from a witch's perspective, water is the great, um, has great capacity to dissolve. It dissolves energy. It changes form, which can change form of matter in both inside of us and outside of us. So I had been contemplating that. So thank you for letting me ask that question. And I'm not going to let you ask me one today because we don't have time. So you get to ask the question for July. I'll put that on your. That was beautiful. I loved it. I really liked that.
No worries.
Okay, so we in episode 1 of June, we went through about the middle of June. So I'm going to pass it with you now while you're in this channeled state and just keep going. Let's talk about the rest of June.
Well, we ended in the last episode with June 15th. So I saved an aspect that will also be active on that same day to start this. So there's a continuity. So we talked about the third and final square from Jupiter in Cancer squaring Saturn in Aries on June 15th. But there's also another very powerful transit happening in the sky on June 15th, and that is Mars, the planet of war, the planet of passion and desire, the planet that rules both Aries, the modern ruler, of Aries, and Scorpio too. Mars also is the ancient ruler of Scorpio. Mars is now transiting direct motion in the sign of Leo, the sign that rules the heart. Leo is the sign of courage, of nobility and royalty. Leo rules the 5th house of the natural chart. So Leo energy is all about creative self-expression, creativity in all realms, in all of its forms, including children, creativity, the great form of creativity. Leo rules romance, chivalry, leadership with heart, with conviction, with courage, integrity and character. Leo energy loves to be noticed. Leo energy loves to be seen. And of course, in its lower expression, its off-centered, unbalanced expression, Leo energy can show up as narcissism, as inflated self-importance or self-righteousness. But in its noble warrior sage manifestation, Leo energy is that energy of chivalry, of doing the right thing, not to become popular, but because it's the right thing to do. End of story. So this Mars in Leo, this fixed fire sign, right, is going to be forming a 90-degree square over to Uranus in the fixed earth sign of Taurus. So these are two fixed signs, fire to earth, Leo to Taurus, Mars the warrior, the planet of action, of initiative, of how we express ourselves, of how we take action in the world. And Uranus is the awakener planet. Now there's a connotation with Aquarius with this as well, because Uranus rules Aquarius. So the Mars-Uranus square on June 15th, two fixed, obstinate signs. They don't want to budge, right? Leo's more dynamic. Taurus wants to hold firm. Taurus is the bull. If you've ever tried to push a bull over, there's a lot of talk when I was a kid about cow tipping. But you ain't going to be bull tipping because they weigh tons. And when their hooves are grounded with the earth, you can't budge them. So here is this energy of the warrior and the awakener. right? In astrology, Uranus rules how we individuate, how we break away from the status quo. Uranus rules how am I unique? How am I individual? How am I a one of a kind? Uranus is those sudden, like, inspiration coming from out of the blue, right? Those downloads, those aha moments. So since Uranus has been transiting the sign of Taurus for the last several years, Taurus represents the world's banking and economic and financial systems and institutions, right? So we've seen bank failures. We've seen the Uranus rules Aquarius, which rules the digital realm of technology. So we've seen the widespread proliferation of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, right? And so Uranus is the awakener. Uranus rattles cages, shakes things up. Uranus is abrupt, unpredictable, and erratic energies. Uranus also in another archetype is rebellion or a rebellious spirit. So when you put together Mars, the warrior in Leo, the sign of courage, and Leo also rules risk-taking, and it's squaring Uranus over in Taurus on June 15th. This could bring up all kinds of different archetypal potentials. We could see volatility in the world's markets, in the financial sector, in the banking sector, in the investment sector. Leo has to do with gambling, speculation, casinos, betting pools. We're thinking like horse races and other sports things. Leo rules sports and games and athletic competitions, and it rules, so we could see a lot of wild, impulsive investment schemes. We could see supply chain disruptions because Taurus rules the supply chains of the economic sector. Taurus is that earth sign of values, of things that we need to survive, tools and resources, right? We're seeing geopolitically right now in the world a lot of tensions. There's stuff going on with India and Pakistan as of this recording, and we don't know what will have transpired by the time this video is posted. But this is an aspect of volatility, of potential explosiveness. Whenever Mars forms an aspect with Uranus in a hard 90-degree square, squares create tension and the need to take decisive action. Now, on the positive end of this, on an individual level, this very energy, depending on where these two planets are lining up in our own horoscopes, in our own birth charts, in other words, what houses they are occupying when this square perfects and reaches exactitude, this could be an energy that breaks us out of a rut, that frees us and liberates us from some stagnating situation or circumstance. So I always like to remind people that in astrology, there are no positive, there's no bad versus good anything, because there's always two things in our lives. And I mention this a lot in my content on Stardust Services. There's the circumstances in which we find ourselves, and then there's our perception of those circumstances. And that perception of our circumstances, the attitude that we're bringing to the situation, how we're seeing reality in our own unique subjective experience is totally dependent upon our own personal level of conscious evolution, which to me means how much inner work have I done? How much of my own baggage have I claimed, right? So this is a powerful kind of a watershed moment in the sky on June 15th, this Mars and Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus. On the 17th of June, a couple days later, the sun in Gemini will be forming a very helpful, supportive, and friendly joining aspect called the sextile. It's the 60-degree angle between planets. And the sun in Gemini will be sextiling Chiron, the wounded healer, in Aries at 26 degrees. So this, the sun represents the self. It's our solar essence, right? It's who we are, how we show up in the world. It's where we shine in our birth charts. wherever the sun falls in our charts, whatever house that's in, that's where we're meant to shine in life. And so the transiting sun kind of represents this collectively, right? Where is the spotlight on the world stage? Well, it's at 26 degrees of Gemini, right? Which we call the third decan of the sign. So now we're moving along and we're getting ready for that summer solstice that's coming up, right? And so this sextile to Chiron means a lot of healing potential. Remember, the 60-degree sextile is a joining aspect. It's very energizing and supportive. It's a friendly aspect, and it blends and synthesizes the two energies. So this is more apt than not to show healing potential in how are we showing up authentically. I like to say Aries is be real and say what you feel. Be your authentic self. And this is healing the physical self, healing the identity, healing how we're showing up in the world. And Gemini is how are we communicating? What information are we sharing with each other? What's important to us at that time? So that's on the 17th. On the same day, Mars finally leaves the fire sign, the fixed fire sign of Leo, and enters the mutable earth sign of Virgo. This is June 17th. So Mars goes back into the earth element. So we're moving away from fixed fire to mutable earth. And Virgo is the sign of health, healing, work, service, humility, purity, the perfectionist ideals, efficiency and organization. Also, Virgo has a lot to do with our daily routines, our daily regimens, our daily practices, and our daily schedules and appointments. So now that Mars is entering Virgo on June 17th, now is a time when we're bringing a lot of dynamic energy and taking action with health, healing, work, being of service to the greater good, tidying things up, decluttering, organizing, sorting and sifting and boxing and taking things to the landfill, right? Purging. It's no small coincidence that Virgo rules the intestines. The intestines are the organs of assimilation, of separating out the nutrients from the waste products. So there is this very strong theme of letting go, of chucking out what's no longer needed. On June 18th, the next day, Jupiter in Cancer will form a 90-degree square to Neptune in Aries. So what's just interesting about this is Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces, and Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So now these two Pisces rulers are forming a square. So to me, I'm getting this download of what kind of dogma can we let go of in a religious or spiritual context? Pisces energy is all about devotion, right? So these two planets have a lot to do with devotion, of belief, of faith. What do we have faith in? And I think it's interesting to note that faith doesn't just pertain to spiritual or religious domains. We have to have faith just to get out of bed in the morning. Like we have to have faith and a belief that the day is worth living. Otherwise, we just pull the covers over our head, hit the snooze button, and we're done. So yeah, faith is not just limited to religion or spirituality, but it's this unflinching trust in something sublime. Faith to me is this knowing that the universe is happening for me and not to me, that I have meaning and intrinsic worth to show up here and somehow keep learning, keep growing, keep evolving so that I can bring the best version of myself forward and contribute to the greater good. So this Jupiter square Neptune can inflate and make more, can increase faith. It can increase our heartfelt beliefs. And Jupiter's in his exaltation in Cancer, and Neptune now has recently entered Aries. So it's bringing all of that research we've been doing for the last 14 years that Neptune's been going through Pisces. And now we're bringing it into action in the world. It's not enough to believe things now. It's almost like all hands on deck. Let's show up and bring our healing modalities and our life hacks to the fore and share them with people. Take action on them. Faith in action, right? And then a couple days later, of course, on June 20th, we have the summer solstice. The sun will leave the communicative, chatty, mutable air sign of Gemini and will enter the cardinal water sign of Cancer. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, Cancer is that sign of the home, of the family, of the ancestry, of our heritage, of our genealogy, of the traditions and generational beliefs that are handed down to us. Cancer is naturally affiliated with the fourth house of the chart. And so it's a very psychological house because it's where we first start to really absorb the value systems and beliefs of our family lines and generational trauma, addictive patterns, codependency patterns, dysfunctional patterns, which provides the grist for our mill in adult life to unpack and decondition all these things. So the summer solstice is the first day of summer in the northern hemisphere. Of course, it's the first day of winter in the southern hemisphere. It's when the days are the longest here in the north and the nights are the shortest, and it's reversed in the southern. And so, yeah, the sun transiting through Cancer, it's a time of get-togethers. It's usually the time of year here in the northern hemisphere for family reunions. Again, that Cancer theme of the family, right? Barbecues, the 4th of July, hanging out and talking. And Cancer's ruled by the moon. So the moon disposits the summer solstice, and the moon has to do with the past. So there's a potential for a lot of reminiscing, for a lot of nostalgia, for a lot of, hey, remember the good old days when life was simple and prices were cheaper and, it was 57 cents a gallon for gas when we were kids, and yada, yada, yada. The very next day, Mercury in Cancer will form that very helpful and friendly connecting aspect called the trine, 120 degrees from Mercury to the north node in Pisces at 22 degrees. So Mercury rules communication, traveling, transportation, and commerce. So when Mercury trines the north node, all these things, business orders, clients, invoices, all these things, communication, traveling, think FedEx, Perlator Courier, UPS, DHL. This is a big time when all these things are moving along very nicely and very smoothly. The very next day on June 22nd, Mars in Virgo will sextile Jupiter in Cancer. And so this is bringing earth and water together. This is a fertile combination. So Mars and Jupiter together in a friendly sextile is, again, it's a supportive aspect, good for getting things moving, connecting things that have been maybe disconnected. It's a joining aspect, taking action with faith, Jupiter, with wisdom, Jupiter. Mars in Virgo likes to show its devotion through acts of service. I happen to have my natal Mars in the sign of Virgo. So I love to show my love for others by doing things for them, by taking action in humble service. On June 23rd, the sun in Cancer will square Neptune in Aries. So here we go. There's another 90-degree tension aspect, right? Squares indicate there's a pressure building up that needs an outlet. So again, squares tend to get us moving in life. Squares is where we tend to be more active, whereas trines and sextiles tend to be where we're more lazy and we take things for granted because it's just flowing. But squares are like, ooh, this isn't working. I've got to take some action here. So that's June 23rd. Then on June 24th is the annual conjunction of the transiting sun across Jupiter. So the sun will pass between the Earth and Jupiter. Actually, the sun will be, I can't tell if it's the superior or the inferior conjunction. So don't worry about that. But this is a new 1-year cycle where the solar essence, where we're shining in life, where the spotlight is being shown on our current life experience, is aligned with Jupiter. And so the solar Jupiterian principle of nobility, of good fortune, of wisdom, of expansion, of beneficial downloads. Jupiter's the greater benefic planet. So we get these beneficial downloads, these aha moments, this like, okay, this is what that means. I get it now. In my Bhakti yoga tradition, we call it direct perception by realization. This is knowledge or understanding that comes to us not by our research, not by Googling something online, but it's when we relax, open up, and allow that divine inflow to come in, and suddenly the connection is made, right? Direct perception by realization. So the sun and Jupiter together, and 6 months later, the sun will be opposite Jupiter. And whatever starts on this day, June 24th, in our awareness, in our lives, in our communities, in our experience of this reality, will come to some kind of culmination. There will be a bearing of fruit of what is beginning now on the 24th of June, when the sun makes that synodic cycle begin again with Jupiter. On June 26th, there's a pair of sextiles. Mercury will sextile Uranus at the very last degree of Taurus. So Mercury will be in the final degrees of Cancer, we call it the anaretic degree or the critical degree. This is where things are coming to a culmination. And so there's a sense of urgency that comes over us. So Mercury at 29 Cancer will be forming that 60-degree sextile to Uranus at 29 Taurus. This is a big one because Taurus is about ready to enter Gemini for the first time in 84 years. The last time Uranus entered Gemini was around the World War II era. And if we go back...
And when is that, Jim? When is that taking place?
Uranus, I believe, enters Gemini in July.
Okay.
In early July. Because Uranus is much more slower moving. But yeah, Uranus was in Gemini during World War II. And if you go back another cycle before World War II, Uranus was in Gemini during the Civil War. And you go back another cycle, Uranus was in Gemini during the American Revolutionary War. So it's interesting. And that's worth a whole show, is Uranus entering Gemini, because he's going to be trining Pluto over in Aquarius, and they're both going to be forming these 60-degree sextiles to Neptune in Aries, which is a very powerful mini grand trine that's going to be happening in fire and air. And the pace of the world is going to be speeding up like nothing we've ever experienced, you know, with AI, with technology, with SpaceX and satellites and all the things that are happening behind the scenes that we're not even privy to yet.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of stuff going on.
I've made a note that we should record a show just specifically on this topic. Even the historic piece, I do think that would be very interesting. So I'll send you a reminder, my friend.
I would love to. And on that same day, the sun will be sextiling Mars. And there's 3 sextiles that day. And this is the same day. This is June 26th. This is the same day that Mercury enters Leo, when Mercury leaves that sextile to Uranus and comes into Leo. So we have Mercury sextile Uranus, the sun sextile Mars, Venus sextiling the North Node, and Mercury entering Leo, all on the 26th of June. So that's a busy day. So that's wonderful. Venus sextiling the North Node is love, money, and relationships falling into harmony with where we're going with our destiny. So that's that's like everything just like coming together and moving forward.
June 26th reminds me of that movie, Everything All at Once.
Oh, I never saw that.
It's interesting. Or just think of it as that concept of that feels like all the things all at once on that day. That might be a good day to like chill, just feel it all. Maybe it's a good day to, you know, find spaciousness, to be in nature and just feel it all. Like let yourself just experience it.
Totally. And yeah, that's beautiful. And there's so much energy that day. Um, as soon as Mercury goes into Leo, he's going to immediately form a trine with Saturn over in Aries. So on the 27th, Mercury trines Saturn at 1 degree and 44 minutes of Leo and Aries, respectively. And the very next day, he hooks up with Neptune in Aries. So here we go. Fire means dynamism, action. It's very exuberant. It's very outgoing. Mercury's communications, transportation, how we think and analyze and deduce logically, right? It's the function of the lower concrete mind. So when Mercury hooks up with Saturn, Saturn is stability, groundedness, form and containment, structure. So important conversations will be happening. And the trine means they'll be smooth, they'll be dynamic, smooth, and very substantial with Saturn. And then as soon as that moves into the trine with Neptune, the topics most likely will move towards the more transcendental things and the action steps we're taking for our spiritual practices, the realizations we're having philosophically, transcendentally, and spiritually. And then on June 29th, to wrap up the month, Mercury in Leo will form an opposition with Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees, 10 minutes of arc. So Mercury opposite Pluto, this could mean a stalemate, a power struggle. Pluto rules power. Pluto rules transformation. Pluto rules so many things. When Pluto left Sagittarius back in 2008 and went into Capricorn, Pluto also rules the financial and banking systems of the world, the economic structures of the world. And as Pluto transited through Sagittarius, there was all this like overspending. It was a time of boom, right? There was so much investment going on and so much spending on all levels. And as soon as Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008, Capricorn's that opposite energy of contraction. It's ruled by Saturn. Sag is ruled by Jupiter, so faith and optimism and investments. And then Saturn rules Cappy. And as soon as Pluto entered Cappy, we had that housing market bubble burst. The real estate, remember that? The big real estate market bubble burst in '08. And all of a sudden, banks were losing money and were failing and everything contracted. And whoa, we have to make a course correction. So Pluto in Aquarius, again, technology, AI, CGI, space exploration, aviation, the digital realm, cryptocurrency. And Leo is a sign of gambling, speculation, and investments. So we could see a lot of action happening with that as well. People losing money, people making money, and facing power structures and power struggles as Mercury in all realms, transportation and communication and commerce. And that wraps up June. And remember that Leo and Aquarius are fixed signs.
Yeah.
So there's an obstinacy and there's like, I ain't going to budge. And the other side says, well, neither are we. So that could bring a lot of powerful communications to a culmination.
And I have to just say, this is kind of side topic, but I've never heard anybody called Capricorn Cappy before.
Oh, really?
I really liked it. I'm like, Cappy. Oh, I like that. Okay, so that's really good. It feels like the second half of June is going to be a little bit more intense. I've made some notes that is it possible that when we're talking about squares, that squares are catalysts? That's the word. Yeah, square is a catalyst, because I know that you talked about change, like it pushes us to do something, like it creates the opportunity for something to be different. And to me, that's a catalyst, because when it's not in square, that's when you were mentioning that it's kind of, oh, like this is easy, here we go. And all of us like that. We want to sit on the easy lane. We want to just like coast and float. It's like, I feel like when you're not referencing a square, it's like you're on an inner tube in a lazy river, but a square is like, oh no, big waves. It's like a catalyst. It's like something hit the water and is about to flip your tube over. That's the catalyst that I see when you were talking about squares.
Definitely, yeah. There's a crisis, there's a conflict, there's a confrontation, there's tension building. Something's got to give. And so squares in astrology, if we have squares in our natal chart, or if transiting planets are forming squares to our planets in our chart, this induces us to somehow get off our butt and get into motion.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so knowing all this, I found the time that I believe this this is actually a dream spell that I suggest people do is between the 22nd and the 24th. And I believe that you talked about that time as kind of a like sifting and sorting, like the sifting and sorting period of time where before things get a little bit busy or before we get to summer solstice, because that's kind of a, well, I mean, this is right over summer solstice. So the 22nd to the 24th will be right in the solstice period. So this might be something to do outside of the celebratory time. And I like this because when you were talking about sorting and sifting, I think we often forget to clear and cleanse and bring clarity to our dreams. And I mean, this is going to be a spell to use while you're sleeping, which is dream time, but also is about your bigger dreams, like your life dreams. You're like the things you long for, the things you wish for that, when somebody says, make a wish and drop a coin into a fountain, I don't know anybody that can't do that. Right? So we have these dreams, but we often see them as so elusive. We don't take time to give ourselves the ability to just think about it, to process it, to see if little bits of that will come into our field. And so what I have for a spell for everyone to do for the second part of June is to just give yourself the opportunity to contemplate your dreams between the 22nd of June and the 24th. Does that sound like a good time frame?
Oh yeah, it's perfect because there's that Mars and Jupiter there, and Jupiter expands whatever he's in touch with.
That's what I was focusing on. Yes.
And the sun will be squaring Neptune, and Neptune's all about dreams.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's start with the steps are, of course, as usual, we plan, we think, we contemplate as part of any creation, ritual, or spell. And so the first thing I want you to do is in your journal, I want you to finish these sentences. And the first sentence is, what I dream of is, and give yourself permission to write. And you could start this, the solstice is on the 21st, right? So when I said start this 22nd, so you could start this maybe 17th, 18th, 19th. Ask yourself this question, like, what I dream of is, and just let yourself write. Second question is, this dream feels like. Third prompt is, this dream looks like. And fourth prompt is, how will this dream change my life? And I actually want you to take a breath, because going through these four questions all at once will start to create an energetic shift in your body. And it's exciting and elusive and all of those things. And then when you answer the fourth question, taking a breath will help kind of anchor you in. And then the ritual is simple. You'll work with everything. Did you have a question?
I wrote them all down.
Okay, good. I want you to work with things that are pink for this ritual. So you're going to take this piece of paper and fold it up and preferably put it next to your bed underneath something like an amethyst or a rose quartz. Yes, perfect. And Jim's got some beautiful pink paper. Look at the pink, the kind of pink that I'm using to write my notes on, right? Like hot pink. Oh, yeah. Yeah, pink. So, right, when we are fostering and thinking and processing dreams, we are tapping into flow. And flow can be sometimes related to feminine, but it's actually related to the beauty of this lifetime. Dreams are the beauty of this lifetime, and we don't give them enough spaciousness in our life, because dreams don't have to mean something that we're going to accomplish right now. It's just something that feels good. So you're going to work with pink. You're going to write it out on pink. You're going to put it underneath a pink stone, whatever kind you have. You can work with, I suggest you work with essential oils that are floral, like geranium, jasmine, rose. And ideally, if you have it, you will inscribe, something about your dreams on a candle and anoint it with one of these beautiful oils. And when you light the candle, I want you to let it drip over the stone and the piece of paper that's by your bed, because this ritual is meant to be done right before you go to bed, and refresh it every day that you can't leave a candle sleeping when you go to sleep. So instead of just leaving a candle near where to bring in the fire magic of the summer, we don't want to leave the candle lit, so we represent it by lighting the candle and dripping it on. Now, of course, wax can always come off stones, so don't worry, you're not ruining it. You can charge it and use it later. But write your dreams down, answer the questions, fold it all up, put it under something that's pink, inscribe and anoint a candle that's preferably pink, or white would be fine, and then just gently hold it upside down and cover the whole thing with melted wax. Blow your candle out and set it next to it. Some added layers are to work with daisies or pink flowers like Jim has behind him. You can add anything beautiful that represents your dreams. It's funny that I actually wrote this spell to include a couple locks or pieces of your hair, man or woman. And I just intuitively feel like it anchors this ritual to you because you're going to be dreaming. So what you might do is when there's a little bit of hot wax, if it was Jim, I'd say maybe trim a little beard hair. Yank a few out if you got some on your chest. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I would just, yeah, right. I would just take a little bit here. I would have the hot wax on my piece of paper, and I would just take like one small little section of my hair, and I would add my DNA to it. So add your DNA to the wax, so it's going to anchor you while you're sleeping. And then every night, just do that again, right? Light the wax, add a little bit of hair or something of yourself. You can add breath and hold that intention of your dreams and go to sleep. Now, that in its own is powerful. But to add another layer in, keep a small journal near this little bedtime altar. And before you get out of bed in the morning, write down everything that you remember about your dream, because you're going to get insights, feedback, and wisdom while you're sleeping. Now, some of us don't remember our dreams, totally fine. And I will tell you that the moment your feet hit the floor, your mind is your mind is not going to be able to hold it. This is just the way dream time works. It's best if you just roll over in bed and grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down everything you remember before your feet hit the floor. But if not, the ritual will work. Now, you might say, well, Tahverlee, you always say that rituals and spells are only really good when you can measure them. And if I'm thinking high-level dreams and I'm just writing about dreaming, how am I going to measure that? And my answer is, ask me when you've done the ritual, because you can. Energetic changes when it comes to contemplating things like dreams and magic and what's possible has a direct impact in your body, which will change everything for you slowly. So we'll talk about it then.
Wow.
This is going to be a good one, and hopefully you and Joelle will do this together. It's a good one to do with your partners. Mm-hmm.
Nice, because she has more pink things than I do anyway.
Well, and most of the time we can find it. Don't think you need to go out and procure all these new things. Use what stone you have, use what candle you have, use what paper you have. If you have all pink, great. If you don't, that's totally fine too. White is, you can envision the white as pink, and that's holds the power of pink.
Cool.
All right. Well, Jim, we covered a lot in these 2 episodes in June. I'm really excited for our listeners. People can find you at stardustservices.com, and I know you do full readings if anybody wants more information. We also gave the alabe.com site. Is that right?
ALABE, alabe.com, yes.
alabe.com. If you want to get your own birth chart of where everything sits for you, it's free. And then you can come back to these shows and listen and know more about where the planets are and which houses. It will help you a lot. And of course, Jim can do an in-depth reading for you at stardustservices.com. And for me in June right now, I highly recommend you check out Witch School, because we're doing a lot of really deep rituals and magic. And I show up there once a month doing a Q&A. So, it's $44 a month, and you're totally welcome to join. We do lots inside that container. So thanks, Jim. Any parting words?
Just my gratitude, as always, that you invited me to be a part of this. I just can't believe how fortunate I am and how blessed I am, and I'm deeply grateful to have you in my life, Tahverlee. So thank you for your wisdom and your generosity.
Back at you. I feel the same. How could I not do this with you? Because we just blend, and when we blend, it just gets bigger and bigger. So I just get so excited.
Our Saturns are in a trine, so Your Saturn in Cancer trines my Saturn in Pisces almost to the degree. So the way we structure things and the way we see self-empowerment are very similar because they're
Very
both in
similar.
water.
Yeah, we do both. I find that a lot. It's really interesting. Sometimes you say words and I'm like, I just said that 5 days ago. Like that's a very strange way that you just said that. It happens for us a lot.
Well, that's my Mercury Venus conjunct your Sun in Sag. So
I love it.
yeah,
All right, thank you. And for everybody, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment, do all the things, and we will see you back in July.
wonderful.